Jake thought he had seen everything during his 3 years at college. He'd lived with messy roommates, quiet ones, party animals, and even one guy who collected vintage lunchboxes. But nothing prepared him for what happened when the housing office called to tell him about his new roommate. Her name is Luna, the lady from Student Services said over the phone. She's an exchange student from a very remote area. She might need some help adjusting to campus life. When Jake asked which country she was from, there was a pause.
That's complicated.
Let's just say it's a very isolated region with different customs. The first thing Jake noticed when Luna arrived was how she stared at everything. Not the normal. Wow, this is a different kind of looking that most international students did. She examined things like she was seeing them for the very first time. She stood in front of the microwave for 10 minutes, just watching the digital clock blink. She touched the light switches over and over, flipping them on and off with this amazed expression on her face. First time using electricity? Jake joked, but Luna just nodded seriously. Something like that, she said in an accent he couldn't place. It wasn't European, Asian, or anything he recognized. The way she spoke was musical, almost like she was singing each word. Luna was beautiful in a way that made you do a double take. Her skin was so pale it almost seemed to glow, especially in the evening light coming through their dorm window. Her hair was silver white, which she claimed was natural, and her eyes were this incredible blue-gray color that seemed to change depending on the lighting. Jake had never seen eyes like that before. What really caught his attention was her notebook. She carried it everywhere and was constantly writing in it. At first, Jake thought she was just taking notes for classes, but he noticed she wrote in it during the strangest times. While brushing her teeth, while watching him eat cereal, while staring out the window at students, walking across campus. "What are you always writing about?" he asked one day. Luna looked up from her notebook with those unusual eyes. "I'm documenting local customs. My family wants detailed reports about how people live here. Like what kind of customs?" She flipped through a few pages. How long people spend in the bathroom, what they eat for breakfast, how they greet each other, the way they sleep. Jake laughed. "That's pretty detailed research for a school project." "Not for school," Luna said, and something in her tone made him stop laughing. During her first week, Luna did things that made Jake question whether she'd ever lived around other people before. She would stand in the middle of the room and just listen, her head tilted like she was hearing something he couldn't. She avoided looking in mirrors and got nervous whenever someone tried to take a photo with her in it. She claimed she was vegetarian, but Jake never saw her eat any actual vegetables. Instead, she lived off these weird energy bars that came in plain packages with no labels. The strangest thing was how she reacted to being alone. If Jake left for class or went to the library, he'd come back to find Luna sitting by the door like she'd been waiting the entire time. She seemed genuinely upset whenever he mentioned going home for the weekend or hanging out with friends without her. "Don't you have any friends from your country here?" Jake asked. "No," Luna said quietly. "I'm the only one, where I come from. People don't. Separate, we stay close to those we're bonded with." "Bonded?" She looked confused, like she'd said. "Something wrong? Friends, we stay close to our friends?" Jake started noticing that Luna had some unusual habits. She never seemed to sleep at night. He'd wake up at 2 a.m. to get water and find her sitting by the window, staring at the sky. When he asked about it, she said she was checking in but wouldn't explain what that meant. Sometimes she would hum these melodies that were unlike any music he'd ever heard. The tunes were beautiful but strange, and they made him feel weirdly relaxed. Her questions about normal things became more frequent and specific. She wanted to know why people closed their bedroom doors at night, why they slept in separate beds, why they didn't stay in groups when they were vulnerable. "Is it normal for roommates to sleep in different rooms?" she asked one evening, looking genuinely concerned. "Yeah, that's pretty standard," Jake said. "Most people like their privacy." Luna's face fell. "But that dangerous. What if something happens? What if you need help?" "Like what?" "It's a dorm room, not the wilderness." She opened her notebook and showed him a page filled with sketches. They looked like floor plans, but with sleeping arrangements drawn in. People were sleeping close together, within arm's reach of each other. "This is how it's done where I come from," she explained. Sleeping alone makes you ... vulnerable. It breaks the protection. Jake stared at the drawings. Protection from what? Luna closed the notebook quickly. Just ... protection. It's hard to explain in your language. That's when she made the request that changed everything. She stood in front of him, holding her notebook, looking more serious than he'd ever seen her. According to my people's customs, she said carefully, roommates must sleep within arm's reach of each other. For safety, for bonding, it's very important. Jake blinked. What? You want us to sleep in the same room? It's not a want, Luna said. It's necessary. Where I come from, this is how trust is built, how protection is maintained. Sleeping alone. She shuddered. Bad things happen to people who sleep alone. The way she said it made Jake's skin crawl. There was real fear in her voice, like she was talking about something that had actually happened to people she knew. Look, Luna, I get that different cultures have different traditions. But please, she interrupted, and her weird, beautiful eyes filled with tears. I can't sleep alone here. It's not safe. Not for either of us. Standing there looking at this strange, beautiful girl who seemed genuinely terrified of spending the night alone, Jake felt something shift in his chest. Maybe it was her tears, or the way her voice shook when she talked about safety. Or maybe it was just that he'd never had someone need him quite like this before. He heard himself saying, we can figure something out.
The relief on Luna's
Face was immediate and overwhelming. She smiled for the first time since arriving, and Jake swore her skin actually did glow a little brighter. Thank you, she whispered. You don't understand how important this is. As Jake looked at her grateful expression and those impossible eyes, he had this strange feeling that she was right. He didn't understand. But something told him he was about to learn more than he ever wanted to know about Luna's mysterious customs and the real reason she'd come so far from home. Jake spent the entire next day thinking about Luna's request. Every time he tried to focus on his classes, his mind wandered back to the fear in her voice when she talked about sleeping alone. By evening, he'd convinced himself that maybe he was overreacting. Lots of cultures had different ideas about personal space, right? When he got back to their dorm room, Luna was sitting on her bed with her notebook open, drawing what looked like room layouts. She looked up when he walked in, and he could see hope mixed with worry in those strange blue-gray eyes. I've been thinking about what you said, Jake started, sitting down across from her. About the sleeping arrangement thing, Luna immediately closed her notebook and gave him her full attention. And, if it's really that important to your culture, we can try to work something out. But I need to understand what exactly you're asking for. The relief on Luna's face was instant. She opened her notebook again and flipped to a page covered in detailed drawings. Jake leaned forward to get a better look and felt his eyebrows rise. The sketches showed various sleeping arrangements, all with two people positioned close to each other. This is how it works where I come from, Luna explained, pointing to different drawings. Partners, friends, family members, they all sleep within protective distance of each other. Protective distance, close enough to touch, she said simply. Close enough to know the other person is safe. Close enough to help if something goes wrong. Jake studied the drawings more carefully. They weren't inappropriate or anything, just intimate in a way that made him uncomfortable. And you said bad things happen to people who sleep alone. Luna's expression darkened. Yes, very bad things. People who isolate themselves during sleep become ... vulnerable, weak, easy targets. Targets for what? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her notebook. It's hard to explain in your language. There are things that hunt those who are alone and unprotected. Things that can't touch you if you're bonded with someone else. The way she said it made Jake's skin crawl. She wasn't talking about burglars, or anything normal like that. Whatever Luna was afraid of, it was something much worse. Okay, Jake said slowly, but you have to understand, here in America, roommates don't usually. We sleep in separate beds, in separate rooms if possible. It's not that we don't trust each other, it's just how things are done. Luna looked genuinely confused. But how do you protect each other? How do you know your roommate is safe? During the night, we just Assume they're fine? That's terrifying, Luna whispered. No wonder so many people here seem anxious and disconnected. You're all living in constant danger and you don't even realize it. Jake wanted to argue, but something about her certainty made him pause. He thought about how stressed he'd been. Lately, how hard it was to get good sleep, how isolated he sometimes felt, even surrounded by hundreds of other students. So what are you suggesting exactly? He asked. Luna flipped to another page in her notebook. This one showed a room layout that looked exactly like their dorm room, but with 2 sleeping bags positioned on the floor next to each other. We move our sleeping space to the common area, she said, close enough for protection, but still maintaining appropriate boundaries for your customs. I researched American social rules in the library. I know physical contact between non-romantic partners is limited here. Jake was impressed, despite himself. You researched our social rules? Of course, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I also can't compromise on safety. She looked at him with those impossible eyes. This arrangement would satisfy both. Our cultural requirements, looking at the drawing, Jake had to admit it wasn't as weird as he'd initially thought. It'd basically be camping indoors. And Luna had clearly put a lot of thought into respecting his boundaries while meeting her own needs. What exactly happens during this? Protective bonding? He asked. We sleep near each other, that's all. Proximity creates a safety barrier. That protects us both. Luna hesitated, then added there might be some minor side effects as the bond forms. What kind of side effects? Better sleep? Reduced anxiety? Improved overall health? Where I come from, people who sleep in bonded groups live longer, happier lives. Jake found himself actually considering it. His sleep had been terrible lately, and he'd been dealing with stress that made it hard to focus on anything. If Luna's weird cultural practice could help with that, maybe it was worth trying. And this is completely normal where you're from? He asked. Completely normal? Children learn to form protective bonds from a very young age. Adults who try to sleep alone are considered either mentally unstable or dangerously selfish. Selfish? Because they're putting their community at risk. If something happens to an unprotected person, it affects everyone around them. Jake thought about his friends back home, most of whom struggled with insomnia, anxiety, and depression. He thought about his own sleepless nights and the constant feeling that something was missing from his life. Okay, he said finally. We can try it. But if it gets weird or uncomfortable, we go back to separate rooms. Luna's face lit up like he'd just offered her the world. Really? You'll do this? I mean, it's just sleeping, right? If it helps both of us get better rest. Before he could finish the sentence, Luna had jumped up and wrapped him in a hug that was surprisingly warm. For a moment, Jake felt this strange sensation wash over him, like every worry in his head had suddenly gotten quieter. Thank you, Luna, whispered against his shoulder. I have no idea how important this is, how much safer we'll both be. As she pulled away, Jake noticed that her skin really did seem to have a faint glow to it, and those eyes of hers looked almost relieved, like she'd been carrying some huge burden that had finally been lifted. So when do we start this protective bonding thing? Jake asked. Luna glanced toward the window where the sun was starting to set. Tonight, the sooner we establish the bond, the better. I've been, exposed, for too long already. Something in her tone made Jake wonder what exactly she meant by exposed. But looking at her grateful smile and the way she seemed genuinely excited about their arrangement, he decided not to ask. After all, how strange could one night of sleeping in the same room really be? That first night, Jake helped Luna move their sleeping bags into the living room area of their dorm suite. She was very particular about the positioning, measuring the distance between them with her hands and adjusting everything until it was exactly right. It has to be within arm's reach, she explained, moving her sleeping bag a few inches closer to his, but not touching. The energy field needs space to form properly. Jake wanted to ask what she meant by energy field, but something about the serious way she was arranging everything made him keep quiet. Luna seemed to know exactly what she was doing, even if it all sounded strange to him as they got ready for bed. Jake noticed Luna had changed into clothes he'd never seen before, a simple white outfit that seemed to shimmer slightly in the lamplight. When he asked about it, She said it was traditional sleepwear from her region. What? It helps with the bonding process, she added. Then quickly looked away like she'd said something she shouldn't have. They settled into their sleeping bags, and Jake immediately felt awkward. He'd had sleepovers as a kid, but this felt different, more serious. Luna lay on her side facing him, those unusual eyes reflecting the small amount of light coming from the hallway. Try to relax, she said softly. The first night is always the hardest. Your body isn't used to sharing protective energy with someone else. What exactly is going to happen? Jake asked. You'll sleep better than you have in years, Luna said with a small smile. And tomorrow you'll feel more rested than you can imagine. Jake was about to respond when Luna started humming. It was the same strange melody he'd heard her hum before, but lying this close to her, he could feel it differently. The sound seemed to vibrate in his chest, creating this warm, relaxing sensation that made his eyelids feel heavy. What is that song? He asked sleepily. It's a bonding melody. It helps synchronize our ... breathing patterns. Jake wanted to ask more questions, but the humming was making him incredibly drowsy. Within minutes, he was fast asleep. He woke up. 3 weeks later, to the strangest sensation he'd ever experienced. Wait, that wasn't right. He woke up the next morning, but it felt like no time had passed at all. One moment he was listening to Luna's humming, and the next moment sunlight was streaming through their window, and he felt absolutely amazing. Jake sat up and looked around, confused. He felt more rested than he had since starting college. His usual morning grogginess was completely gone, replaced by this incredible sense of energy and well-being. Good morning, Luna said, and Jake turned to see her already awake, sitting cross-legged, in her sleeping bag with that notebook in her lap. How long have you been up? He asked. I don't really sleep the same way you do, she said, but the bonding worked perfectly. How do you feel? Jake took a mental inventory. Actually, really good. Great even. I usually feel terrible in the mornings. Luna smiled and made a note in her book. The protective bond is establishing itself. Should notice improvements in many areas over the next few days. Over the following week, Jake realized Luna wasn't exaggerating. His chronic anxiety seemed to have disappeared overnight. He was more focused in classes, had more energy for studying, and even his grades started improving, friends commented, on how much better he looked, how much more confident he seemed. But the weirdest part was what happened during sleep. Every night, Jake would fall asleep to Luna's humming, and every morning he'd wake up feeling incredible. But sometime during the third week, he started waking up in the middle of the night to find Luna's arm draped across his chest. The first time it happened, Jake's eyes snapped open around 2 a.m. Luna's arm was lying across him, and her hand was resting over his heart. The contact felt warm, not just physically warm, but warm in a way that seemed to reach inside his chest and spread throughout his entire body. He should have felt uncomfortable. He should have moved her arm and gone back to sleep. Instead, he found himself relaxing into this sensation. It felt protective, comforting, like nothing bad could happen to him as long as Luna was touching him. When he gently tried to lift her arm, Luna's eyes opened immediately. Not the slow, confused awakening of someone pulled from deep sleep, but the instant alertness of someone who had been awake all along. Sorry, she whispered. It's part of the bonding process. Physical contact during sleep strengthens the protective barrier. How long has this been happening? Jake asked. Every night since we started. You usually don't wake up. Jake realized she was right. Looking back, he had vague memories of feeling surrounded by warmth during his sleep, of dreams where he felt completely safe and protected. Is this normal for your culture? He asked. Luna hesitated. The bonding process is ... intense, but it's necessary for full protection. Before Jake could ask what she meant by full protection, Luna pulled him closer. Her touch sent waves of that incredible warmth through his body, and every worry he'd had about their strange arrangement simply melted away. Just let it happen, she whispered. Fighting the bond will only make you feel worse. Jake wanted to ask more questions, but the sensation of Luna's touch was overwhelming. It was like every stress, every fear, every negative thought in his head had been turned off. Felt a peace he'd never experienced before. a sense of completeness he didn't know he'd been missing, as he drifted back to sleep in Luna's arms. Jake noticed she smelled like something he couldn't identify. Something sweet and clean, like the air after a thunderstorm. Her skin seemed to radiate warmth, and he could swear he felt a faint electrical sensation wherever she touched him. The next morning, Jake woke up feeling better than ever, but also with a strange new awareness. He found himself thinking about Luna constantly during classes. When she wasn't around, he felt restless, incomplete. When she returned to their room, the relief was immediate and overwhelming. His friends started commenting on the changes in him, not just the improved mood and better grades, but other things. He seemed calmer, more centered. He'd developed some of Luna's mannerisms, tilting his head when listening, pausing mid-sentence as if hearing something others couldn't. Most concerning was how dependent he was becoming on their nightly routine. The thought of sleeping alone now seemed impossible. He needed Luna's presence, her touch, her protective warmth. What scared Jake the most was that he didn't really care about any of it. Whatever Luna was doing to him felt too good to question. The bonding process, or whatever she called it, was changing him in ways he didn't understand. But as he fell asleep in her arms each night, surrounded by that impossible warmth and feeling safer than he'd ever felt in his life, Jake found himself wondering if maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. The last thing he remembered each night was Luna's voice, soft and musical, whispering words in a language he didn't recognize but somehow understood perfectly. "Sleep well, bonded one. Oh. You are protected now." By the 4th week of their sleeping arrangement, Jake's life had completely transformed. His friends barely recognized him anymore. The anxious, stressed college student they'd known had been replaced by someone who seemed almost unnaturally calm and confident. "Dude, what happened to you?" his friend Tyler asked during lunch. "You're like a different person. Did you start taking medication or something?" Jake paused, a forkful of food halfway to his mouth. The question felt strange, like Tyler was speaking a foreign language. "I'm just sleeping better," he said finally. "Sleeping better doesn't turn someone into a Zen master overnight," Tyler said. "And what's with the weird pauses? Keep stopping mid-sentence like you're listening to something?" Jake hadn't noticed he was doing that, but now that Tyler mentioned it, he realized it was true. Sometimes during conversations, he would hear this faint humming in the back of his mind, Luna's melody, and he'd stop to listen to it. "It's nothing," Jake said, but even as he spoke, he could feel that familiar tilt happening to his head. The same way Luna tilted hers when she was concentrating. Tyler stared at him. "Okay, that's seriously weird. You just did that head thing again? And your roommate does the exact same thing." That afternoon, Jake found himself paying more attention to his behavior. Tyler was right. He had picked up several of Luna's mannerisms without realizing it. The head tilting, the pausing mid-sentence, even the way he held his pen when taking notes. It was like Luna's habits were becoming his habits. When he got back to their room, Luna was sitting on her bed with her notebook as usual. But this time, the notebook had fallen open to a page Jake had never seen before. From across the room, he could see what looked like charts and diagrams covered in symbols that hurt his eyes to look at directly. "What's all that?" Jake asked, pointing to the notebook. Luna quickly closed it, but not before Jake caught a glimpse of his own name written at the top of the page, followed by what looked like dates and numbers. "Just notes," she said, but her voice sounded different, nervous. "Notes about what? And why is my name in there?" Luna stood up and moved to the window, her back to him. "I told you, I'm documenting local customs. You're my primary subject for cultural observation." Subject. The word hit Jake wrong. "What do you mean, subject?" "I just meant ... example. You're my example of how American students live." But Jake was already moving toward her, his mind suddenly much clearer than it had been in weeks. "Let me see the notebook." "No," Luna said quickly, clutching it to her chest. "It's private research. Research on me?" For the first time since he'd known her, Luna looked genuinely scared. "Jake, please. You don't understand what you're asking."
But
Jake was tired of not understanding. The fog that had been surrounding his thoughts for weeks was lifting, and he was starting to see how strange everything had become, how dependent he'd grown on Luna's presence. how much he'd changed without realizing it. "I want to see what you've been writing about me," he said firmly. Luna backed against the window, still holding the notebook. "If I show you this, everything will change. You might not want to continue our arrangement. Maybe that's exactly what I need to see." After a long moment, Luna slowly opened the notebook. The page she turned to was filled with Jake's personal information, his class schedule, his friends' names, his eating habits, his sleep patterns. But underneath all that normal information were stranger notes. "Subject shows excellent adaptation to bonding process," Jake read aloud. "Emotional dependency developing on schedule. Physical contact, tolerance increasing. Memory modification successful." Jake looked up at Luna. "Memory modification?" Luna's unusual eyes filled with tears. "You weren't supposed to see this." "Does memory modification mean?" "The humming," Luna whispered. "It doesn't just help you sleep. It helps you forget things that might make you resist the bonding." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Forget what things? Questions you asked that I couldn't answer? Moments when you seemed suspicious. Times when you tried to pull away from the physical contact." Jake stared at her, pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "You've been messing with my memory? It's only small things. Only when necessary to maintain the bond." "And what exactly is this bond really for?" Jake demanded, grabbing the notebook from her hands. He flipped through page after page of observations about him, charts tracking his mood changes, diagrams showing the progression of their physical contact during sleep, and on the last page, a section titled "Preparation for Transport." "Transport?" Jake's voice was barely a whisper. "Transport where?" Luna sank onto her bed, no longer trying to hide anything. "Home, to my real home?" "Which is where, exactly?" "Because I'm starting to think it's not anywhere on this planet." Luna looked up at him with those impossible silver blue eyes, and for the first time, Jake saw her clearly, really saw her. The way her skin seemed to glow from within. The way her movements were too graceful, too fluid. The way she never seemed to blink as often as normal people. "You're right," she said quietly. "It's not." Jake felt the world tilt. Around him, "You're not human." "No, I'm not. This whole bonding thing, ... is a process we use to prepare subjects for life in our environment. The physical and emotional changes make humans more adaptable to our world." Jake sat down hard on his own bed, the notebook still in his hands. "Subjects, you keep using that word, because that's what you are. What you were supposed to be." Luna wiped tears from her eyes. "Humans who won't be missed. Students who are isolated, who don't have strong family connections, who could disappear without causing too much investigation." "You were going to kidnap me?" "Not kidnap. Transport you would have been? Willing by the time we left?" "The bonding process makes subjects want to come with us." Jake thought about how much he'd grown to depend on Luna's presence, how the thought of sleeping without her now seemed impossible. I was just going to agree to leave Earth forever. Yes. Eventually the bond becomes so strong that subjects can't imagine being separated from their partner. They choose to come willingly. Jake stared at the notebook in his hands, at all the careful observations Luna had made about his transformation. "How long have your people been doing this?" "Generations. We study human behavior, human psychology. We select candidates and integrate them into our society. As what, pets? Lab rats?" Luna flinched. "As research participants. Your people fascinate us. We want to understand how you think, how you feel, how you form connections. And you never thought to just ask? Your governments wouldn't allow it? This way is ... cleaner." Jake stood up, pacing the small room. Everything made sense now. Luna's strange behaviors, her mysterious background, the way the bonding process had changed him so dramatically. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Do you drag me back to your spaceship? Wipe my memory again?" Luna looked genuinely miserable. "I don't know. This has never happened before." "What has never happened?" A subject discovering the truth before the bonding was complete, and ... double quotes. She hesitated. "What?" "And a researcher developing genuine feelings for their subject." Luna looked up at him with those impossible eyes. "I wasn't supposed to care about you, Jake. But somehow you've changed me too." Jake stared at her, trying to process everything he'd learned. The girl he'd grown to care about, to depend on, wasn't even human. She'd been manipulating his mind and emotions as part of some alien research project. But looking at her tears, at the genuine pain in her expression, he found himself believing that her feelings for him might actually be real. The question was, what was he supposed to do about it? The silence in their dorm room stretched for what felt like hours. Jake sat on his bed, still holding Luna's notebook, while she remained by the window with tears streaming down her face. The late afternoon sun made her skin glow even more than usual, and Jake found himself wondering how he'd ever thought she was human. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Finally, Luna wiped her eyes. "What do you mean, before your people come for me?" "Before this transport thing is supposed to happen." "Days," Luna whispered. "They're expecting a progress report tomorrow, and the extraction is scheduled for this weekend." Jake felt his stomach drop. Extraction, it's what we call it when we bring subjects home. It's usually very peaceful. By that point, the bonding is so complete that subjects are eager to come with us. But I'm not eager. Not anymore. Nodded sadly, which creates a problem. For both of us. Jake stood up and started pacing again. His mind was racing, trying to process everything. "What kind of problem? I was supposed to complete your conditioning and deliver you willingly. If I can't do that, ... Luna shuddered. "My people don't tolerate failure well. What happens to failed researchers? They're stripped of their abilities and exiled. Left to survive on whatever world they're studying?" Jake stopped pacing. "So if you can't deliver me, you're stuck on Earth forever?" "Yes, and you would be taken anyway, but by others who wouldn't care about your comfort or well-being during the process." The weight of the situation hit Jake all at once. Luna had been manipulating him, yes, but she was also trapped in a system she couldn't control. And now they were both facing impossible choices. "Is there any way to break the bonding?" Jake asked. "To undo what's been done to me." Luna was quiet for a long moment. "There is a way. But you wouldn't like it. Tell me." "I can reverse the process. Remove all the conditioning. Erase your memories of our time together. Reset your brain chemistry to what it was before we met." Jake felt a strange pang at the thought. Despite everything he'd learned, the idea of forgetting Luna completely seemed wrong. "And then what?" "Then you go back to your normal life. Your anxiety returns. Your sleep problems come back. All the improvements you've experienced disappear. But you'd be free. And you. I faced the consequences of my failure alone." Luna really looked at her. Even knowing what she was, even understanding how she'd manipulated him, he couldn't deny the connection he felt to her. The bonding process might have been artificial, but the feelings it had created felt real. "There's another option," Luna said quietly. "What?" "You could come with me willingly, because of the conditioning, but because you choose to." Jake stared. At her? Choose to leave Earth forever? To go to an alien world where I'd be a research subject for the rest of my life? "It wouldn't be like that," Luna said quickly. "If you came willingly as my partner, you'd be treated with respect. You'd be free to learn about our world, to contribute to our understanding of humans, as the only human there, not the only one. There are others who've made the same choice over the years. Humans who've formed genuine bonds with their researchers and chose to start new lives with us." Jake tried to imagine it, leaving behind everything he'd ever known to live on an alien world with Luna. It sounded insane. But then he thought about his life on Earth. His anxiety, his loneliness, his constant stress about the future. "What's your world like?" he asked. Luna's face lit up slightly. "Beautiful. Our cities are built from crystalline light. We don't have pollution or war or poverty like you do here. Our people live much longer, and we spend our time learning and exploring and creating. And the humans who are there, are they happy?" "Yes," Luna said without hesitation. "The adjustment is difficult at first, but they adapt. They find purposes they never would have had on Earth." Jake sat back down, his head spinning. "This is crazy. All of this is completely insane." "I know," Luna said. "But Jake, I need you to know something. Whatever choice you make, My feelings for you are real. The bonding process wasn't supposed to work both ways, but somehow it did. I care about you in a way my people can't understand. How? Do I know that's not just part of your conditioning too? Luna walked over to him, slowly, giving him plenty of time to pull away. When she reached out to touch his face, Jake felt that familiar, warm sensation. But now he could sense something deeper underneath it. Something that felt genuine and vulnerable. Because I'm willing to give up everything for you, she said. You choose to have your memories erased? I'll do it. I'll face exile and punishment rather than force you into something you don't want. Jake looked into her impossible eyes and saw something he'd never noticed before. Fear. Not just fear of punishment from her people, but fear of losing him. And if I choose to come with you, then we face whatever comes together. I can't promise it will be easy, but I can promise you won't face it alone. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the campus below. Students were walking to dinner, going about their normal lives, completely unaware that aliens were living among them. He thought about his friends, his family, his future plans, all the things he'd be giving up. But he also thought about the past few weeks, how peaceful he'd felt in Luna's arms, how much better his life had become with her in it, how empty the thought of returning to his old existence seemed. Can I ask you something? Jake said. Anything. When you first arrived here, when you chose me as your subject, was there anything special about me? Or was I just convenient? Luna was quiet for a moment. Initially, you fit our standard criteria. It's isolated, struggling, unlikely to be missed quickly. But Jake, ... double quotes. You were kind to me from the first day. You helped me understand things without making me feel stupid. You were patient with my questions and gentle with my fears. So none of my training prepared me for what it would feel like to have someone care about my well-being just because they wanted to. In my world, relationships are based on mutual benefit or biological necessity. What you showed me was something completely different. Jake turned back to face her. What was it? Compassion. Pure, uncomplicated compassion for a stranger. Luna smiled through her tears. That's when I started to understand why my people are so fascinated by humans. You have something we lost long ago. As Jake looked at Luna standing there, vulnerable and honest and alien and beautiful, he realized something that surprised him. The choice he was facing wasn't really about Earth versus an alien world. It wasn't even about freedom versus captivity. It was about fear versus love. About playing it safe versus taking the biggest risk of his life for the chance at something extraordinary. If I go with you, Jake said slowly, and I hate it there, is there any way back? Luna shook her head. No, the journey only goes one way. And if I stay, you'll really erase my memories of all this. Yes, you'll wake up tomorrow thinking I was just a strange exchange student who transferred to another school. Hey. Jake took a deep breath. He thought about his ordinary life, his predictable future, his safe but lonely existence. Then he thought about Luna's world of crystal cities and endless possibilities, about being one of the first humans to see an alien civilization, about facing the unknown with someone who cared about him. The choice when he really thought about. It wasn't that hard after all, Luna, he said, reaching for her hand. When do we leave?